Hi everyone. Today I will be delivering my lecture on social contract theory. Social contract theory this theory emerged, or developed in Europe, in 17th century, and so this theory was at peak during this period of time during the 17th century, and there were three important scholars who actually contributed when it comes to the social contract theory. One is Thomas Hobbes, and second is Jean Jacques Rousseau, and third is John Locke. Okay, uh, what is this social contract theory actually? Let me just briefly tell you. The social contract theory tells us that the origin of the state is not a natural institution. The state came into existence not through the natural process, rather it came into existence through a kind of agreement or between the people once or between the individuals once they decided that we cannot live in a state of nature which is a terrible situation, where there is a terrible situation, where there is a constant warfare, and where there is a conflict, and so on and so forth, which I am going to tell you in a very detailed manner, that the state of nature situation was not good for the human beings, for the people, or therefore they decided with the passage of time, and that we need to create a contract, a kind of agreement among ourselves in order to uh, you know, uh, create the state, which is a kind of very essential institution or necessary institution for all of us, where we are all going to be preserved, protected, and safeguarded. And let me just begin. What is this social contract? Let me just describe it and explore all the ideas which are essential in order to be debating, in order to lament all the ideas, very important ideas regarding this very particular theory, that is social contract theory. So the social contract theory is another theory which tells us that how state came into existence, with passage of time. What is this social contract theory? State is not a natural institution, rather it is an artificial device. So the social contract theory believes in a very important principle, that what we have seen in organic theory, that state came into existence through the natural process. They believe that the state is there was something in the human being's mind, that they wanted to see, to lay the foundation of stone of the state or society. And that's why Aristotle said, once he was talking about, once we were discussing about the organic theory of the state, he said man by nature is a political animal. And but here this is the social contract theory is entirely different from the organic theory, because it will tell you that state is not a natural institution, rather it is an artificial device. So it was actually created by the people through they invented this state for their mutual benefits and for their uh, different interests, for their mutual interests. So state came into existence by a contract, okay, by a kind of agreement among the people, and it is for the state came into existence for their mutual interests, for their mutual benefits, okay. So state is a kind of artificial device. It is not a natural institution, and this is the very important point when once we want to discuss and elucidate the social contract theory, that state is not the natural institution, rather it is an artificial device created or invented by the people themselves for their mutual benefit and for their mutual interests. This is the first important point, or first salient point, or first important characteristic, or the first important principle of the theory of social contract. So it is invented, it is intended to serve the interests of all sections of the society. So it's according to the social contract theory. Once there was an agreement, so the agreement was made in a way that the state is going to take care of all the people, all the sections of the society. It is going to work for all, not for the one segment of the society, one community, or one group of the people. Rather, it is going to be working for all the people, within the state. The second point, which I am going to say here, the social contract theory of the origin of state implies that there was a time so this social contract theory, once we are discussing this theory, it also tells us that what would have been the situation once there was no state or society, or when there was no civil law. What would have been the the state of nature. So that is the actually not about the state or society, that is about the state of nature. How would have men lived in the state of nature? And that's why I am going to describe that state of nature by the three contractualist scholars and philosophers, their point of view and their take on. One is going to be Thomas Hobbes, second is Jean Jacques Rousseau, and then John Locke. So I'm going to explain their ideas about the state of nature. But let me just tell you, what is this state of nature? The state of nature was a condition that before the society and state, what would have been, how would have men lived in that kind of environment, in that kind of society, when there was no society. So how would have men lived? So in that kind of environment. So that is called the a social that is called a state of nature. So the social contract theory tells us the two important things, that it also tells us that how would have been how would have men lived in the state of nature, and what would happen, how this state came into existence. It came into state came into existence because there was a general will. There was a will of the people that to trace the origin of the state, they to lay this foundation stone of the state, because they themselves wanted to lay the foundation stone of the state, that we need this institution. It is immensely required for all of us in order to come out from the paradoxical situation which was the state of nature, in order to protect our interests, and in order to come out from that all kinds of problems which were there in state of nature, which I am going to explain to you step by step. So this was the first point, that how men would have lived in the state of nature. The second point, how the state was created, how state originated, and that is the second point, which is very important once we will be discussing the theory of social contract. So the social contract theory of the origin of state implies that there was a time when people lived or would have lived without any recognized civil law, or without a state. Okay, so this stage of life of man is called a state of nature. So I think it is now clear. There is no need to explain it more, because I think it is very clear now. So that then the state was created through the voluntary agreement of all individuals. So how the state was created? There was a voluntary agreement. There was a voluntary willingness of all the people. All people wanted to lay the foundation of the state. They wanted to have a state, and they were searching out that state that we needed. This is a very immensely required for all of us. This is a very important institution. This is a very necessary institution, and therefore we need it, because in order to come out from that paradoxical situation, which was the state of nature, where there was a lot of problems, because there was no state, there was no society, and there was no law actually. And now let me just so the social contract theory was also it came into existence in 17th century as a theory. It emerged strongly in order to in order to check the feudal system in Europe, and it has really strengthened the democratic setup throughout the globe, and so it strengthened or it bolstered the democratic setup or the democratic capitalistic system in the world. It actually strengthened or bolstered you can say the capitalist system in the world, or it has it checked the feudal system. Okay, this is one. The second is going to be a very important point. The social contract theory was based on actually on speculation. So it was actually, this theory was not based on any scientific or on scientificism, or we can say or historical. It was not based on historical evidence or the on scientificism, or rather what we can say that the this theory, social contract theory, was based on speculation. That speculation was what was that speculation, what was that assumption, that how would have been man lived within the state of nature. Okay, and this was one. The second, how the state was created. Okay, so this theory, the social contract theory, is entirely based on speculation. So it actually seeks to trace out the origin of the state, and through the logic, not on the basis of science and historical evidence. So it wants to trace out the origin of the state, that how a state actually originated, and not on the basis of scientificism, not on the basis of science, not on the basis of historical evidences, rather on the basis of logic. So it evolved logic actually in order to understand, in order to trace that how the state came into origin. Why there was a need of a state, and how the men would have lived in the state of nature, and what was the condition in the state of nature. So everything was actually, the scholars of this social contract theory, they were actually assuming, they were actually speculating, about that kind of atmosphere, or that kind of period, that what would have been before the state and society, how would have men lived in before the state and society, or that is called the state of nature. So let me just try to explain to all of you in a very detailed manner that what are the main important points, that how the state of nature have been explained by three contractualist philosophers, and then why there was a voluntary agreement among the people, that they decided that we can't live without a state. We need a state, and we have to live within the state. Without a state, we are not secure, and our development is not possible. And because they recognized it, and therefore, because the state came into existence through the voluntary agreement among the people, they said that we need it. Okay, let us see the state of nature, the point of view of the three philosophers. First, I am going to discuss the Thomas Hobbes. The Hobbesian concept of a state of nature, he has given actually the gloomy picture of the state of nature, that men by nature, or the men by nature are selfish, egoistic, nasty, self-centered, and British. So there was a every man was enemy to every man. So this was the condition of the state of nature, and everybody was talking about his self-interest. He was not caring about other people, rather thinking about his own interest. So this was the condition that he actually explains it, that every man is the enemy of every man. And he also says it was the state of nature was the war of all against all. So there was a phenomena of war of all against all. There was no industry, there was no navigation, there was no life. So you can understand. So there was a perpetual conflict, there was a perpetual constant warfare among the people. And there was, in totality, we can say that it was a situation of might is right. It was a situation of might is right, and also there was a urge of self-preservation. So everybody was actually trying to protect his own interest, without caring about other fellow human beings. So that was the condition which was prevalent in the state of nature. So the state of nature was the which Thomas Hobbes has explained it, and therefore finally, the requirement of self-preservation itself created a sense of duty in the minds of men, and which prompts them to form the state. And finally, the people decided that we have to come out from the paradoxical situation of state of nature, where there is a constant warfare, where there is a war of all against all, where every man is enemy to every man, where there is a perpetual conflict, where there is a constant warfare, where everybody is egoistic and self-centered and nasty, and therefore in order to come out, and there is no life in the state of nature according to Thomas Hobbes. And because there is no industry, there is no life, there is no navigation, and therefore how to come out from that, there is a total conflict and chaos. And then finally, how to come out actually from that state of nature. Finally, the people decided that voluntarily, they decided that we can't live in that kind of situation. We have to form the state. We have to form the state, and within the state is going to secure us. State is going to preserve us. State is going to protect our rights. And therefore, according to Thomas Hobbes, then he has written, the Leviathan, that is, we need a strong ruler, we need a strong state, we need a strong government, where the people could their rights could be safeguarded, their lives could be safeguarded, and people can live a good life, a better life within the state. So therefore, this was the state of nature which actually Thomas Hobbes has actually mentioned. Then let me just discuss also the state of nature of the Jean-Jacques Rousseau. What he said, it was a contrary to the what has been said by Thomas Hobbes. He says that he describes the natural man as a noble savage. According to the Rousseau, that man was the noble savage in the state of nature. So man, man is equal. He was equal. He was self-sufficient. He was contented. So he was happy. Having a happy life. He was self-sufficient. He was equal. So, but with the passage of time, what we have seen as a result of the civilization, as a result of property, private property, as a result of the competition, so that has created actually inequalities in our society, and that has raised actually, the inequalities in the minds of the people, and therefore, finally. And therefore, what he said also, once upon a time, he also mentioned that man is born free, but he is everywhere in chains. But finally, he recognized that how much the state is going to be important, how much the political society is going to be important, and because people decided agreements, and he says that agreements, according to Rousseau, agreements are the basis for all legitimate authority among men. So when men abandon the state of nature and enters into civil society through contract, and their loss is not handsomely, and their loss is handsomely compensated once they are entering into the political society, once they are entering into a civil society, and so whatever they have lost, so that is going to be handsomely compensated once they will be living, once they will form the civil society or a kind of political society. Once they will enter into civil society, then everything is going to be handsomely compensated. So this was actually, so finally, once they said, even here in the first situation where I was discussing the Thomas Hobbes, and the second situation discussing the Rousseau, both places you will see the people voluntarily decided, they made a kind of agreement that we need to form a society, or we need to form a state. We need it because we can't live a good life without a state. because the state of nature is a very problematic phenomena for all the people. Therefore, they have to come out from that paradoxical situation, from that constant warfare, from that, even according to the Rousseau, they say that even though he believes that man by nature is noble savage, he is equal, he is self-sufficient, and he is contented, but he is also explaining the situation as a result of civilization, as a rise of civilization, as a and private property when it enters into society, and because of that, we have seen a lot of inequalities, and has came into the heads of the people, and there was problem. But finally he said that state is very important. We need a legitimate authority among men, and for that matter, there was a kind of agreement among the people. They decided that we need legitimate authority. And when men abandoned the state of nature, and they said that we can't live in a state of nature, we have to stop it, and we have to enter into a civil society, and through the contract, that means through agreement, and whatever they have lost, their loss is going to be handsomely compensated once they will start living in a civil society or in a state. Let us go to John Locke. According to John Locke, as I let me just tell you, John Locke believes the constitutional monarchy, and it is not the state of constant warfare. So, according to John Locke, he believes that the state of nature was not a constant warfare. Uh, on the contrary, what he said, it is the state of peace. So once he is explaining the state of nature, he says the state of nature is the state of peace. It is the state of goodwill. It is the state of mutual assistance. It is the state of preservation. So it is not the it is the state of liberty, not a state of license. Okay, so. You are going to enjoy your liberty, but it does not mean you are going to do whatever you want. It is not, your liberty is not licensed. So men are born rational beings, but still there are few who set aside the rules of morality for their self-interest. So what kind of problem John Locke is actually explaining and talking about, that even though by nature the people are rational, they have their rational mindset, but there are some troublemakers, there are some few people who are actually denying the morality, and they don't accept any rule, and therefore they will be always striving for their self-interest, and without taking into consideration, without taking into cognizance the interest of all the sections of the society. So they will be striving for their own individual interests, and therefore he says that therefore we need to, in order to rectify this defect, men abandon the state of nature, and they said that we need civil society, we need civil or political society, and by means of contract. So here also you can see the people actually abandoned the state of nature, and they said they voluntarily decided that we have to live within the state of we have to live within a state or political society. And but this power is but this here also you can see still but this power is going to be in the hands of community, and the people but people are going to still retain their natural rights, for example, right to life, right to liberty, and right to property. I think, thank you so much for hearing my lecture. See you next time with my another lecture. Take care of yourself. Stay blessed.